I multiplied the number of months I had been alive at the age of 72. And then I said to myself, okay, I've been alive like 8,572 months, but I'm only getting 7 months of cancer. Come on, Diane. Be a grown up. Put on your big girl pants. You can do that. That's hardly anything. And so I did something that I would recommend to everybody. Take something as huge as the threat of mortality and bring it down to size, a size that you can handle, a size where you can put it in a box and pick up that box and put it on the shelf and say, yeah, I know you're there. I've got other things, more important things to do. Well, hello, everybody. This is Diane Gilman, formerly known as the Queen of Jeans on QVC HSN, but now the proud host of my podcast, Too Young to Be Old. And we will be devoting every Tuesday in October to Breast Cancer Awareness Month because, as many of you may know or not know, I am a breast cancer survivor. And what I would like to talk about today is not the pain, not the sickness, but what a gigantic announcement like, whoa, you have got a really overwhelming case of cancer does to your life, and especially someone like me. So let me just give you a little background. I came to be known as the Queen of Jeans because at the age of 60, I invented the middle-aged jean, a totally different kind of denim bottom, realistically measured to a postmenopausal woman's body. And I became #1 fashion personality globally, all through Europe, Australia, Canada, and the United States for QVC and HSN with my denim line DG2. All of my adult life was devoted to my talent for design, which I dearly loved, and to my business, Diane Gilman Fashion Collection. I put aside self-care. I put aside feeling good. I put aside even thinking about the possibility of working with people I enjoyed working with because I was in an environment so toxic that I might as well just have taken Drano and glugged it down every morning. So, of course, when I started getting all the symptoms of breast cancer, including a deep ache in my left breast, a little bit of exhaustion, but I just said, okay, I'm on a treadmill, a career treadmill. That's where the exhaustion comes from. I knew something was wrong. But because I never took care of myself, I took care of my talent. I took care of my design philosophy. I took care of my obligations to doing television all over the world. Well, all of that was piled up. And at the very bottom was caring for myself. Now, I had always had a healthy body. There was absolutely no history of cancer or breast cancer in my family. So I said to myself, yeah, what? Nothing. I'm older. It's calcium deposits in my breast. Wrong. I finally had a bit of a different female problem. And when I went to see that doctor, I mentioned it. He said, well, Diane, I really don't handle anything from the waist up. I'm all about from the waist down, but let me feel it. And I saw the look in his face. And he looked at me and said, you are going, not for a mammogram, but for a sonogram immediately. Well, here I am. Hello, it's me. And I say, no, I can't. I've got shows. Look out in your lobby. I've got my suitcase out there. I'm getting on a plane. I'm flying. I've got television shows. Okay, promise me. I'll make the appointment. You're going to go literally the minute you get back from LaGuardia Airport to this imaging center. Okay. And I did. And I want to say that when I was asked to write part of my third published piece, which is called From Princess to Pauper in Women Thrive 3, an anthology book, international, and I just got back from London promoting the book. What did I choose? I choose my experience with breast cancer. Now, a lot of other potentially catastrophic things happened in my life, and I figured out a way to get through them, under them, or over them. But when I went to the imaging center, there were no doctors there, but the head of the sonogram department basically came into my little airless, musty, dusty room where they did the sonogram and said, and I quote, "It's hopeless. You have cancer everywhere." And at that point, my psyche literally left my body. I felt that I had been shoved into a shaft of ice. I could only relate on a very distant level. Anybody that said anything to me, it was like the sound was from very, very far away. And I knew I was in a state of shock and needed time to absorb. Well, it's Christmas Eve. I mean, you don't want to bum anybody out who's a friend. I had no family. My family was my business. My family was what I did with my life and all the people that surrounded that and supported that and made it happen. And those were not people where you could take the license to lean on them. But I had myself for counsel, and I'd been on my own and self-sufficient and building my life the way I wanted to, albeit not being able to totally give myself every person around me as a wonderful, bright, shiny, I'm with you, I'm here for you, Diane kind of person. I led a transactional life. I was a dollar sign for people. People like me in the studio. Yeah, I gave them the highest hours of the day. I always made the studios money. Same for my staff. I had a big staff, and they weren't going to have a job if I wasn't there. So I felt a deep sense of responsibility. But you're alone for the Christmas holidays. And your news is you've got cancer. Looks like it's stage 4. And you are probably not going to survive. And you're alone thinking that. And you're alone manufacturing this huge anxiety that just is like a Mobius strip, a loop in your brain. And it just keeps going back to stage 4 cancer, stage 4 cancer, stage 4 cancer. Through the doctor who had forced me, truly, to go to the imaging center, I had my first miracle. For breast cancer, I could not have been given a better place to go. Dubin Breast Cancer Clinic within Mount Sinai in Manhattan. Outstanding. And I got the head surgeon for cancer, Dr. Alyssa Port. So I felt I was sort of covered there. But when we went through the regime, it was going to be a minimum of 6 to 8 months of the heaviest chemo they could do. I was terrified of chemo. My life partner, exactly 20 years before, when I was 52, not 72, had died of cancer. A terrible and really tragic, heartbreaking battle that lasted 10 years and spread everywhere. And I saw his suffering. So, of course, my images of chemo were even way above, in terms of anxiety, producing my images of what does stage 4 cancer really mean. And then I had a whole group of people I had worked with who really cared about me, but through their religion, they saw treatment for cancer as the cause of death, not the cancer. Chemo killed you. So I had a whole group of people in one ear telling me that I was killing myself if I went for treatment. I should just do green juice. I had another group of people in another ear telling me, you better get into treatment like yesterday. Don't even take a day to think about it. And I also had a business that was like my child and had its own perpetual set of needs. So I locked myself in my home over Christmas. I didn't go out at all. I didn't socialize. I didn't talk to anybody. I had to put my life in order, even though from the outside it looked like a really well greased life mechanism that was based on performing on TV, always showing up for shows, always doing well, always tinkering around with design and wardrobe and color. And here's basic. I had to go through a total role reversal. Now, most people, if they're going to do a role reversal and try and roll back bad habits, their own personality that's not working for them, and try and bring something, another point of their personality forward, they do it through therapy. And it could take years. I had about 8 days by myself. So the first thing I thought was, what makes this so different from your normal life? Well, I'm in control, total control freak, controlled everything. Every single piece of clothing and accessory the models wore on TV. What I was doing, wrote my own scripts. I had to give it up. That role reversal was so important to survival, but so tough. I was not going to be the boss anymore. What? I'm 72. I've controlled my whole life. I put myself in one direction and gone that route, and then seen where I had to take a quick right-hand turn and go in another direction, take an opportunity and build that. I was a life builder. Everything I did in my career, I did with very little support and mostly as a solo practitioner. And, the real truth was I loved every minute of it, but I was not the boss anymore. Alyssa Port, the great cancer surgeon, the great and famous breast cancer surgeon, she was in control. The oncologist who was talking to me about chemicals and percentages, and that I had no idea what she was talking about. I'm not a scientist. I'm a commercial artist. She was in control. And the chemo nurses, your real touch point of everyday life, they were definitely in control and a little bit scary. People under that much pressure, and they were. You're really dealing in a highly charged environment. So, no longer being the boss, I had to look at life differently. And I had to say to myself, number one, you, Diane, are so used to putting your life in order and telling people what to do and how to be. They're going to be your support mechanism or your foundation. You're not going to tell these people at the clinic how to do anything. But knowing me, I knew I needed a personal touch, and I am a people pleaser. I am a crowd pleaser. That is where a lot of my happiness comes from. So I knew out of all the sides of me there were, bitchy older woman was not going to fly. I was not going to order anybody around. I was not going to complain about pain or bouts of nausea or depression. I was going to be what I am and always was in front of a camera. Little ray of sunshine. That's something I actually am. That's something that gives me a lot of pressure. And I remember in my first days of television, my first years, we had a talent scout, we had a talent finder and coach for TV, for HSN. And I was in a very bad mood one day and not feeling good and had an early morning show. And oh boy, I wasn't the kindest I could have been to the host. I got called in afterwards. And he said, I never want to see you that way on TV again, ever. I want you to be the most grateful, the happiest. This is the best day of your life because you're on TV with your audience. This is you emanating light and comfort to millions of women. And I never forgot that. And I thought that's exactly what I have to do when I go into chemo. I will not be accompanied to chemo by people that are family, that are blood, that feel they must do this. And, I wound up never being alone in chemo. Actually, I had a wonderful set of friends, but I had to take it like, what do I want to get out of this experience? I want them to be the kindest to me they can. I want them, and they lead highly pressured lives without great pay. At least I was leading a highly pressured, toxic life, but I was getting paid well for it. So I'm going to try and make them happy and always be telling them jokes and always be grateful and glad to be there. That was such a role reversal. That was a life changer, all in itself. I was no longer the star. I was no longer in a position to demand. And my biggest goal was get back to a normal life. But the problem was, and I knew it, that normal life is what gave me cancer. My normal life was so toxic, so pressurized. But I even took part of that and turned it around because I always felt like nobody loved me unless I did something for them. Nobody cared about me. My life was so transactional unless I was giving the best performance ever, every time on TV. And they loved me when the show was over because I came in way above expectations. So I took that and turned it into a chemo kind of a game where I said to myself, I am going to be the happiest I can be every day. I'm going to open myself up to chemo. I wanted to go through me. I wanted to heal me and cure me. And there's only one way to do it, and that is not to be tense, not to be sad, not to try and shelter myself from it, but to accept it and say, here's my lifesaver. Now, that was really difficult to do. I had seen my significant other suffer through chemo for years. None of it was good. All of it was really deleterious to his health, to his goals, to his personality. But I did something even more than trying to tamping down those thoughts and say, this poison is actually going to be good for me. I made a deal with me that I would never once think that this cancer was going to kill me. Ever. And I did that, and I say this to all of you because anybody can do it. It's totally actionable. I did it by encapsulating it. You know, when somebody says to you, and it was not stage 4 breast cancer, it was, they couldn't agree. Well, one breast was stage 3, the other breast was stage 2. Oh, yeah, I had it in both breasts. Lucky me. And each breast was a totally different kind of cancer. So tricky. I multiplied the number of months I had been alive at the age of 72. And then I said to myself, okay, I've been alive like 8,572 months, but I'm only getting 7 months of cancer. Come on, Diane, be a grown up, put on your big girl pants. You can do that. That's hardly anything. And so I did something that I would recommend to everybody. Take something as huge as the threat of mortality and bring it down to size, a size that you can handle, a size where you can put it in a box and pick up that box and put it on the shelf and say, yeah, I know you're there, but I've got other things, more important things to do than worry about you. So I put all of my treatment into an approximation of what percentage of my total life it was. And you know what? It really worked. And that way, knowing that you only have so many hours in a day, so many hours of good energy, for me, that's always the morning into the early afternoon. I wanted to concentrate all the energy I had on curing myself, on giving all those chemicals and all those drugs and that radiation the best chance to kill the invader, cancer, and allow me to begin to heal. And I don't think that I ever would have thought that I had this kind of self-discipline, or even, to tell you the truth, this kind of self-love. Because for me, I only loved myself when I was succeeding. I only loved and respected myself when I had had a good show and really punched through the ceiling of expectations. But I also did that with the chemo. Because when I came in once every 2 weeks, even though I was getting chemo every day, and then we went to a stronger chemo that was once a week, and then we went to once every 2 weeks. But when I came in to the oncologist, it was win or lose. It was either, wow, your tumors are really shrinking. Good job. I felt like a puppy that was being petted. Yeah, but I did it. I took and recognized in a very pragmatic way parts of my personality that needed to be assuaged, that needed to be fed, that needed to be praised. And in my own way, I made my treatment like a TV show. That's what I knew. I knew good Diane, she succeeded. Bad Diane, she failed. And damn it, this was life altering. I could not afford to fail. Chemo or radiation or surgery or those chemo nurses, because they had your life in their hands. And let me tell you what, plenty of scary stuff happened along the way. I don't remember one chemo treatment I went to where that alarm bell didn't go off, because Some poor lady being treated for breast cancer was taking a kind of chemo where she suddenly went into anaphylactic shock and had to be revived and had to have her heart pounded on. I mean, there was all this scary stuff going on all around you, but you couldn't let it affect you. So I will tell the most meaningful part of my story that is in Women Thrive 3, an international anthology that 13 women participated in, telling the one low point or the one most challenging point in their lives. So I'm getting into the routine of chemo. I don't seem, thank God, to have any kind of terrible reactions. I sail through everything. I've got a smile on my face. And we all have our own private chemo room, and we all have it filled with white orchids, and that is Dubin. Unbelievable place to go if you are female and you've got a female-oriented cancer. And we always got lunch, organic lunch, served to us, along with either a shoulder or a foot massage, you choose. And so you had your own personal masseuse, you had your own TV set. You couldn't really see in the rooms next door, but they were always filled. It was overflow. So now picture this. I've been the boss of my own businesses my entire life. I've got a following of 650,000 women on QVC HSN, America alone, not to mention Australia, Canada, Germany, France, the UK, and Italy. I am an international tele-retail star. I get stopped a lot, especially in airports, for selfies, for please sign my airline ticket. I'm going to keep it forever, autographs. And yeah, I'm going to be honest, I love that stuff. But you're not anything when you're going for chemo. You're another patient who's going to be treated with the expected level and modicum of respect and service, but no different from anybody else. That was really hard to take. I lived in an ivory tower. I traveled first class. I was treated like a mega god when I went into the studios because retail is about money, and girls, I was a money maker. I'm sitting there getting chemo, and it's toward the end of my 7-month regime. So I kind of know everybody and I know the drill. And suddenly I hear, "Ah, Sheila, Sheila, oh my God, you're here today. Hey, everybody, come say hi to Sheila. She's here." Well, in my demented brain, where everything is about competition, who's number one? Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the most beautiful of them all? That was my life. Constantly self-judgment, constantly being judged. I'm thinking, who is Sheila? Who the hell is Sheila? Oh, Sheila, we've got your favorite lunch today. Mozzarella and dried tomatoes. Dried tomatoes. I'm thinking, I like that. Yum, yum. No one's offered me lunch. But we're going to give you 4 of them. Don't tell anybody. Stuff them in your bag. I'm thinking, okay, who is Sheila? Is she getting treated better than me? She's getting more attention? God forbid. She's getting more food, even though I don't want any. I don't get it. And everybody comes thundering to her. So, that must be a pseudonym for a Broadway star that everyone loves. Maybe. Or it could be a philanthropist who helped set up the Dubin Center. Likely. Or it could be someone on the Good Morning America show. Absolutely. Or it could be a news anchor. There's plenty of them in New York. So I called my nurse in and I said, okay, I know I never have lunch, but it would have been nice if you'd asked me if I had lunch, if I wanted it. And she said, okay, Diane, do you want it? And I said, well, no, thank you. But I want to know why this woman, Sheila, got 4 of them. 4 of them secretly. Who is this? Come on, you can tell me. She must be a star, either a society star, a TV star, or a Broadway live theater star, and honestly, the nurse looked at me like I was mentally deranged. I felt like she was so in shock at my utter lack of knowledge, at my absolute stupidity and self absorption. It took her a moment to gather herself, and she said, no, Diane, she is not famous. She is not a philanthropist and wealthy. She is not a performer. She is a battered housewife who is now forced, because it's too dangerous to live at home. And she has stage 3 breast cancer, forced to live in a homeless shelter with her child. And the food is so bad in the shelter. And she is so sick from chemotherapy that she goes without eating for days at a time. And these 4 sandwiches will be her only meal each day for the next 4 days. Okay. If you ever question your judgment or question your priorities or wonder what your view is of yourself and your self-worth, this will do it for you. The chemo nurse left the room, and for the first time in all my treatment, I broke down and cried. I was so taken with the story and so ashamed of myself for using a false, vanity-driven set of values in a situation where cancer plays no favorites. Cancer doesn't say, oh, Diane, you're really good on TV. You sold millions of genes this year. I'm going to leave you. I'll go over here to this other woman who's a battered housewife and homeless and desperate. No, it is an equal opportunity destroyer for all of us. And that moment when Sheila came into my consciousness absolutely changed my life, changed my goals, changed who I wanted to be, shook my value system, and it went one step further. So I get out of treatment. I have no idea whatever happened to Sheila. I wish her well. I think about her often, and I pray for her safety and continued health if that was the direction she was going in. But I'd never met her, and it is so ironic to me that for somebody like me, who is like a freight train, that I could be stopped and reversed and bettered and enlightened by somebody who did not share my value systems, I assure you, and who I never even met. Well, years later, and I think it was about a year ago, maybe a little bit less, when you have a mortality-based disease, you can put it far away from you, but it's always a little close to you. You always, when you hear other people are ill with basically the same kind of cancer or a cancer, you relate to it on a very different scale than people that have never had the disease. So now I'm doing podcasts. I changed my whole life. I said, my life's too toxic. I walked away from being number one on television, tele-retail, and fashion. I walked away from being a huge money earner, and I decided to become a podcaster and a social media advocate for older women and everything we go through, and try and spread an enlightened message much further than I could in tele-retail. So I work remotely. I do my podcasts from home, which is so nice for me. And I'm really living under a huge umbrella of gratitude. I love my life now. I am so invigorated. I learn new things every day. I am so happy. I love the message I'm giving out. All good, all good, all good. And then suddenly there's Princess Kate Middleton on CNN in, and I thank you very much, Princess Kate, a pair of jeans and a very simple jumper, which is what the English call a sweater. And she's announcing that she has cancer. And the way she announces it, and through knowing other celebrities, I know after she's done announcing it that it's a female-based cancer. And I start crying. Now, I never cried, really, during chemo. I never cried after I got a diagnosis, and I never cried after a mastectomy, because I knew if I started crying, you were never going to turn the faucet off. It was going to go on forever. But I sat down and listened to her, and I wept like a baby. And I realized at that point, and I was just entitling my chapter for Women Thrive, that it would be from princess to pauper, that cancer was the great leveler. Cancer puts out no judgment on you. You are simply available. You are one of many, too many. And whether you are a princess training to be a queen, or you are a pauper, a battered wife living in a homeless shelter, we are all equal in that moment. That life lesson and those tears were the final huge learning curve for me. They humbled me. They leveled me out. They made me feel in the depths of my heart how very, very lucky I was. And they told me something I probably already knew, that I had been saved by the universe, whatever you wish to call it, for purpose. And I made a vow to myself from that moment on, every minute of the day I would treasure, I would see as a miracle, but I would also see a life of purpose. And that purpose would be, I have a talent for seeing things on a much wider scale than most people. I have a talent for lifting people up and making them feel better about themselves and giving them alternatives that are actionable. And that is who I would be going forward and who I am. So in conclusion, the worst of times morphed into the best of times. And whether you are a princess or a pauper, we are all somewhere in our lifetime going to experience a life-altering event. Whether it is a diagnosis of breast cancer, or it is losing someone you love to that disease, just know that there is a plan for you. There is a purpose for why this is happening. Find it. Use your time wisely. And when you come out of it, and you will start going towards the light, be grateful and know what a miracle every moment Truly is. I thank you. Thank you. Oh, I'm going to cry. For listening to my story. And I wish you all health and wealth and absolutely the best life you can lead every moment. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to Too Young to Be Old podcast. The episode may be over, but the fun doesn't have to stop here. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at The Diane Gilman, or visit our website, thedianegilman.com. If you like the show, leave us a rating or a review and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. And until then, don't forget, age is just a number. Together, we'll prove that we are all too young to be old.